Welcome to the Daily Books channel. I'm your traveling companion, Bookworm, ready to explore another literary world.
And I'm here to help unpack the thinking behind these incredible works. We've got a lot to get through today.
We certainly do. Today we're diving deep, really deep, into one of the most, well, unsettling and influential books ever written, George Orwell's 1984.
Absolutely iconic. And maybe more relevant than ever.
Before we jump in, just a quick reminder, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, maybe like this deep dive if you find it useful, and definitely let us know in the comments. What's the very first thing that pops into your head when you hear 1984? Or maybe that phrase, Big Brother is watching you.
Yeah, that interaction really helps us shape these conversations.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Try to picture this. It's not your average day. The clocks aren't striking 12, they're striking 13. It's a cold, gray April day in London. But it's not London as we know it. It's Airstrip 1.
And the smell. Orwell described it, doesn't he? Boiled cabbage. That sort of cheap, nasty gin.
Victory gin, yeah. And everywhere you look, those posters, that face, those eyes, Big Brother is watching you. It's just inescapable.
That feeling, that constant surveillance. That's the entry point into Oceania, isn't it? It's designed to create this baseline of fear. So our mission today, it's not just to, retell the story.
Yeah, definitely not.
We want to dig into the analysis we've gathered, look at why Orwell wrote it, the historical context.
Those terrifying linguistic tools he described.
Exactly. Newspeak, doublethink. And how frighteningly relevant it all still feels today, because the warnings Orwell was sounding back then, well, they haven't exactly gone away.
Let's start right there with the origins. Orwell, or Eric Arthur Blair, he published this in 1949. That date feels crucial. Just after World War II, Cold War kicking off, what was going on around him?
Well, it was a period of intense disillusionment and, frankly, horror. Orwell had seen totalitarianism up close, or at least the devastating reports from it. You get to think about Nazi Germany.
German fascism, yeah.
And also, crucially for Orwell, Stalin's Soviet Union. He saw how these regimes operated.
So this wasn't just some sci-fi fantasy. He was looking at real-world systems.
Absolutely. He was extrapolating. He saw how states like Nazi Germany, and especially the USSR under Stalin, mastered information control, propaganda, the rewriting of history, the purges.
He was particularly critical of Stalinism, wasn't he? Seeing the revolution betray its ideals.
Deeply critical.
Yeah.
He saw the dream of a worker state twist into this brutal, paranoid dictatorship. The show trials in Moscow, the famines, the constant lies. He took that logic of absolute control and built Oceania around it. And think about the original title.
The Last Man in Europe.
Right. It tells you he saw Winston Smith, his main character, as this sort of relic. A man desperately trying to hold on to his inner self, his memories, his individuality, in a world where that was literally a crime.
Changing the title to 1984 really shifts the emphasis, doesn't it? From one man's tragedy to a warning for a specific future point.
It makes it a time-stamped warning, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a direct commentary on the Cold War tensions that were ramping up. It's Orwell shouting, essentially, look out, this kind of total control, this crushing of the individual mind and spirit. It can happen anywhere, with any ideology if we're not vigilant. The goal is total psychological domination.
Okay, let's map out this world, Oceania. It's a superstate ruled by this shadowy party elite, headed by a big brother who might not even be real.
He's more of a symbol, yeah,
Yeah.
an icon. Our way into this is through Winston Smith. And his job, it tells you everything. He works at the Ministry of Truth.
Which, of course, does the opposite of dealing in truth. What does he actually do there?
His job is basically to erase the past. He works in the records department, altering old newspaper articles, speeches, documents, anything, really, to make sure that whatever the party is saying now looks like it was always true. Every prediction Big Brother made has to come true retroactively.
So the past isn't fixed. It's completely fluid, changeable on demand.
Exactly. Which means reality itself becomes fluid. Winston can't even be sure what year it really is. He doesn't know the true history of the wars or even his own family because the official record is constantly being rewritten. There's no anchor.
Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. That's the quote, isn't it?
That's the core logic. If you control memory, you control reality. And this is where the party's whole philosophy comes in, this reliance on just blatant contradiction. They don't hide the lies, they force you to embrace them.
Which brings us to those famous slogans carved on the Ministry of Truth building. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. They sound absurd.
They are absurd on a rational level. But that's the point. They're designed to break down logical thinking. If you can genuinely believe deep down that constant warfare brings stability, that war is peace, then you can't logically argue against the state's endless wars.
It conditions you to accept nonsense as truth.
It forces the mind to hold contradictory ideas simultaneously. If the state declares A is not A, and you accept it, you've surrendered your own intellectual judgment. It's the foundation of their control.
And this isn't just abstract. It's built into the very structure of the government, the names of the ministries.
Oh, absolutely. It's institutionalized deception. The Ministry of Peace.
Runs the wars endlessly.
Right. Perpetual war keeps the economy geared towards scarcity, justifies the surveillance state, keeps everyone on edge. It creates internal peace through external conflict.
Then, the Ministry of Love, Minilov. Sounds benign, but it's the headquarters of the thought police.
It's the most terrifying place. It's where they handle suppression, interrogation, torture, where they educate dissidents, where they break people.
Again, the name is the exact opposite of its function. And the Ministry of Truth, Minute True, where Winston works.
Its entire purpose is generating lies, propaganda, rewriting history, ensuring the party's never wrong, never mistaken, manufacturing the truth day by day.
And finally, the Ministry of Plenty, Minaplenty, which presides over starvation.
Essentially, yes. It deals with the economy, but its main job seems to be churning out fake statistics to convince the population who are living on starvation rations that they're actually experiencing unprecedented prosperity. Production up, rations increased. All lies.
So this inversion of language, this contradiction, it's everywhere. It's systemic.
It is the system. It's not just lying to the people. It's forcing the people to participate in the lie, to live the lie. It's making them practice doublethink constantly, just to navigate daily life. The party believes that controlling reality itself, not just people's actions, is the ultimate form of power.
A question that occurs to me, though, do the people at the very top, the inner party members like O'Brien, do they actually believe this stuff? Or are they just cynical manipulators?
That's a fascinating point raised in the analysis. If they were purely cynical, maybe there'd be cracks, vulnerability. But O'Brien later suggests, quite terrifyingly, that the true party intellectual is the master of doublethink. They have to be.
So they genuinely believe the lies they're creating.
They convince themselves that the lies are necessary, therefore true, in a higher sense. They know they're rewriting history, but they simultaneously believe the rewritten history is the real one. It allows them to pursue power for its own sake without crippling cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
They have to believe in the reality they impose.
Okay, if controlling reality requires controlling thought, then the ultimate tool for that has to be Newspeak. This isn't just jargon, is it? It's something far more sinister.
Oh, much more. It's linguistic engineering designed for mind control. The stated goal of Newspeak, the official language of Oceania, wasn't just to provide a way to express the party's ideology,
English socialism, yeah.
but to make all other ways of thinking literally impossible.
Yeah.
By the time Newspeak is perfected, rebellious thoughts, heresies, they won't even be thinkable because the words won't exist.
Orwell wrote about this earlier too, didn't he? How political language often uses euphemisms to hide ugly truths.
He did, in his essay Politics in the English Language. He saw how vague language and ready-made phrases could obscure reality and defend the indefensible. Newspeak is that tendency taken to its absolute, state-mandated extreme. It actively destroys words, narrows the range of thought.
If you eliminate the word freedom, how do you even conceptualize freedom anymore? The loss of vocabulary becomes a loss of consciousness.
That's precisely the idea. Language shapes the boundaries of your world. Let's look at some specific Newspeak terms. They're terrifyingly effective. Take crimethink.
It sounds like, planning a crime in your head.
Right, that's the misleading part. But it's much broader. Crimethink makes the act of thinking itself a crime if that thinking deviates even slightly from the party line. Any flicker of doubt, any unorthodox thought, that's crimethink.
There's no gap between thinking it and being guilty.
None. Winston writes it starkly in his diary. Thought crime does not entail death. Thought crime is death. The moment you think independently, you're already doomed in the eyes of the party.
Wow. Okay, what about black-white? That sounds like pure contradiction.
It is. And it's a crucial test of loyalty. Black-white has two contradictory meanings. Negatively, it means claiming the black is white, defying obvious facts, the kind of thing an enemy might do.
Okay.
But positively, it's the highest virtue. It means being willing, loyally, to call black white if the party demands it. It means subordinating the evidence of your own eyes and reason to party discipline, believing both at once.
That requires a kind of mental gymnastics I can barely imagine. It's not just obeying, it's obliterating your own perception.
Which is why they value things like belly feel. This isn't about intellectual agreement. Belly feel means the blind, enthusiastic, unquestioning acceptance of party ideology. It's loyalty that comes from the gut, visceral. No need for thought or proof.
Pure unthinking belief.
Which is considered far more reliable by the party than someone who intellectually agrees but might still, think too much.
And then there's duck speak, which sounds comical.
It sounds comical, but it's deadly serious in context. Duck speak means literally quacking like a duck speaking without any conscious thought behind the words.
So just noise.
Well, if it's noise that perfectly parrots the party line, it's considered a great accomplishment. It means you're spewing orthodoxy automatically. The example Orwell gives is brilliant.
The speaker at the rally.
Yes. He's passionately denouncing Eurasia, the current enemy. Then a messenger hands him a note. Mid-sentence, without pausing, without changing his tone or expression, he switches to passionately denouncing Eastasia, the new enemy.
Because the alliances shifted just then.
Instantly. And the perfect party orator, the master of duckspeak, doesn't even notice the contradiction. He's not thinking about the content, just making the required noises. That's the ideal.
And protecting yourself from having the wrong thoughts involves crime stop.
Right. That's the mental discipline. It means shutting down any potentially dangerous line of thought automatically, instinctively, before it can fully form into crime think, like a mental switch flipping off.
Okay, but the absolute cornerstone of all this mental manipulation is doublethink. We've mentioned it, but how does it actually work? How do they overcome basic cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling when you believe contradictory things?
That's the terrifying genius of it. Cognitive dissonance normally pushes us to resolve contradictions. Doublethink is the party's method for consciously inducing and using that contradiction. The key, especially for inter-party members like O'Brien, is to know the truth that the history is fake, that the slogans are lies, but to simultaneously believe the lie is necessary and therefore true.
So you consciously hold two contradictory beliefs and you accept both. You use logic against logic, you forget the lie when needed, then forget that you forgot. It's an endless loop.
An endless, controlled process of self-deception. It allows the party elite to be brutally pragmatic, to change policies on a dime, to advocate for, say, freedom while practicing tyranny, and remain, in their own minds, morally pure and consistent. They believe their own propaganda while simultaneously knowing it's manufactured.
Which brings us to the ultimate test O'Brien puts to Winston. The 2 + 2 = 5 question. Can the party actually make that true?
And O'Brien's answer during the torture sessions is the absolute bedrock of the party's philosophy. He tells Winston, essentially, that reality exists only in the human mind, and specifically in the mind of the party. If the party says 2 + 2 = 5, then it is 5.
He says, sometimes, Winston. Sometimes it is 5, sometimes there are 3, sometimes they're all of them at once.
Exactly. It means there is no objective reality outside the party's control. Even mathematics, the most basic rational system we have, must bend to political will. Truth is whatever the party needs it to be at any given moment. That's total power.
All right, let's shift focus to the people caught in this system, particularly the ones who try to resist. Starting with Winston Smith himself, he's called the last man. What makes him rebel?
His rebellion isn't initially grand or political, is it? It's deeply personal. It stems from this profound longing for authenticity, for memory, for individualism, for all the human experiences the party's trying to stamp out.
It starts small, buying that illegal diary.
Yes, the diary is the first step. Just the act of writing down his own thoughts, his own version of events, is crime think. Then buying the glass paperweight, that useless, beautiful object containing a piece of coral. It represents a connection to a past the party denies, a pocket of unchanging reality.
He's trying to anchor himself.
Exactly. His fundamental desire is just to own his own mind. That's why things like genuine love, loyalty between individuals, personal memories, these are the ultimate heresies in Oceania, because they create private spaces the party can't fully control. He clings to faint memories, like his mother sacrificing herself, as proof that a different way of life, based on real emotion, once existed.
There's an interesting psychological lens some analyses apply here using Freudian ideas, like repression.
Right. Winston is constantly fighting against repression. The party wants everyone to forget, to repress inconvenient truths. Winston actively tries to remember, to hold on to those fragile memories of the past, of his mother, a time before Big Brother. He's repressing the party's reality, in a way.
And projection, directing his feelings outward.
You see that clearly in the diary. Down with Big Brother. He's projecting all his fear, his hatred, his powerlessness onto that symbolic figure. It's a release, even if futile.
What about displacement? Shifting feelings onto safer targets.
Maybe towards the diary itself initially. It's a safe object to pour his rage into. Or even at first his feelings about Julia, that initial anger and suspicion before he understands her. And definitely rationalization trying desperately to cling to logic, like arguing with himself that 2 + 2 must equal 4 as a way to fend off the party's induced insanity.
Now, let's contrast Winston's very internal, historical, almost philosophical rebellion with Julia's. Hers is completely different.
Utterly different. Julia is often described as the rebel from the hips down. Her resistance isn't ideological at all. She couldn't care less about Goldstein's book or overthrowing the party.
So what does she care about?
Personal pleasure, immediate gratification. She's practical, resourceful. She knows how to get real coffee, real sugar, makeup on the black market. She enjoys sex, breaking the party's rules about relationships, not as a political act, but because it feels good. She wants to carve out small pockets of private enjoyment within the system.
But this leads to some criticism, doesn't it? Some feminist readings find her problematic.
Yes, there's a paradox.
Okay.
On one hand, she's presented as incredibly brave, competent, street smart. She takes risks Winston wouldn't dream of initially. But, well, critics point out that her rebellion remains fundamentally physical, not intellectual. She famously falls asleep when Winston reads Goldstein's book aloud, the core explanation of the party's ideology. Winston himself often seems dismissive of her intellect. Her motivations are framed around pleasure and defying sexual puritanism, which some see as aligning with, well, a kind of male fantasy figure. And ultimately, her rebellion doesn't challenge the system's foundations.
And she's betrayed just as Winston is. So neither the intellectual rebel nor the sensual rebel succeeds.
Which brings us to O'Brien, the enforcer of the system. He's fascinatingly terrifying.
Because Winston initially sees him as a potential ally, right? That shared glance across the room.
Exactly. Winston projects all his hopes for the Brotherhood, for organized resistance, onto O'Brien. He desperately wants O'Brien to be on his side. It's a profound act of self-deception, really, a denial of how total the party's control is.
And O'Brien plays into it.
Masterfully. He draws Winston in, pretends to be a fellow conspirator, gives him Goldstein's book, only to reveal himself as the ultimate insider, the architect of Winston's downfall. He embodies the party's intellectual cruelty. He's both a tormentor and, weirdly, a kind of father or teacher to Winston during the interrogation.
So the torture in the Ministry of Love, it's not just about punishment or getting information.
According to O'Brien, no. The goal isn't simply to punish Winston for his actions or even his thoughts. The goal is conversion. It's therapy, in their twisted view. O'Brien says they're curing Winston of his insanity, his belief in an objective reality outside the party.
You want to cleanse his mind.
Precisely. They don't just want to stop him, they want to remake him. O'Brien makes it clear. They don't kill heretics until they've genuinely converted them. They want him to love Big Brother before they dispose of him. The aim is total psychological surrender.
And that surrender happens in Room 101, the place containing the worst thing in the world.
Which is different for everyone. It's tailored terror. For Winston, it's rats. The visceral, primal fear of rats attacking his face is the breaking point.
That's when he screams, "Do it to Julia."
Yes. That betrayal of his deepest loyalty, his love for Julia, is the moment his inner self collapses. He saves himself by sacrificing her, proving O'Brien's point that individual loyalty means nothing against sufficient pain and fear. His psychological resistance is shattered.
And after that, he's hollowed out. He traces 2 + 2 = 5 in the dust. He loves Big Brother.
The transformation is complete. The party didn't just break his body, they conquered his mind. Victory was total. It's one of the bleakest endings in literature.
Before we leave the characters, what about Big Brother and Goldstein? They're omnipresent, but maybe not even real people.
They function as essential symbols, control mechanisms. Big Brother is the face of the party, the all-seeing, all-knowing leader. He provides a focus for loyalty, love, worship. It makes the abstract power of the state personal, relatable, even if he's just an invention.
A necessary icon.
Absolutely. And Goldstein is the necessary anti-icon. He's the primal enemy, the traitor, the source of all heresy and sabotage. He focuses all the fear, hatred, and frustration of the populace.
Like during the 2 minutes hate.
Exactly. That ritualized outpouring of rage onto Goldstein's image is crucial for social cohesion and control. By having this constant internal-external enemy, the party justifies everything, the surveillance, the shortages, the endless war. Whether Goldstein actually exists is irrelevant. His function as the focus of hatred is what matters.
Okay, so 1984's warnings. They echo powerfully today, maybe most obviously in the theme of surveillance. That total surveillance society Orwell depicted.
Right, the telescreens. They weren't just PVs broadcasting propaganda. They watched you back, constantly, listening, monitoring behavior. You couldn't turn them off. They gathered data. And the parallels to our world are, well, they're hard to ignore. Think about smart devices.
Our phones, smart speakers, laptops.
Social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they're constantly collecting enormous amounts of data about us. Our location, our habits, our preferences, our connections, what we read, what we watch.
It might not be the thought police listening for CrimethInc in the same way, but that data is definitely being used.
It absolutely is. For targeted advertising, sure, but also for shaping opinions, predicting behavior, classifying people. The potential for manipulation is immense. One analyst made a really sharp point.
What was that?
That the slogan, Big Brother is watching you, has almost flipped. Now it's more like Big Brother is you watching. We actively engage with the technology. We feed it data willingly. We conform to the trends and consumer culture it promotes. That conformity can be just as effective at stifling dissent as direct oppression.
That links to the idea of the Panopticon versus the Super Panopticon. The Panopticon was that prison design, right?
Yeah.
Where the guard tower can see all cells, but prisoners never know if they're being watched right now.
Exactly. Jeremy Bentham's idea. It leads to self-discipline, self-censorship, because you might be watched. Think of CCTV cameras everywhere today.
But the Super Panopticon, that's different.
It's the digital evolution. With the Panopticon, you're aware of the potential surveillance and modified behavior. With the Super Panopticon, the surveillance is often voluntary or seems necessary for convenience. We give our data away through online shopping, loyalty cards, social media, using government e-services.
We participate in our own tracking.
Willingly, often for trivial benefits, and this creates a much more comprehensive, subtle, and efficient system of monitoring and classification than the thought police could ever dream of. We build our own digital dossiers.
Now, another key element Orwell highlighted was the need for an enemy. Goldstein served that purpose in Oceania. How does that play out now, this idea of securitization?
Securitization is a really important concept here. It's when governments or powerful actors take an issue that isn't necessarily a security threat, maybe immigration or public health or economic policy, and frame it as an existential danger to the nation.
And once it's framed that way,
It justifies extraordinary measures.
Yeah.
Things that bypass normal debate and democratic processes. Suspending rights, increasing surveillance, expanding executive power, all in the name of security.
the most obvious recent example being the war on terror after 9/11.
Absolutely. That period saw a massive expansion of surveillance powers, new security laws, restrictions on liberties, all justified by the existential threat of terrorism. And often, those powers could then be used subtly or not so subtly against domestic dissent as well.
And the language used is key. Orwell called it Newspeak. Some eyewitnesses mention Bushisms or similar political rhetoric from that era.
Right. Using euphemisms like coercive interrogation instead of torture, or invoking homeland security or economic security to justify policies that might primarily benefit specific corporate interests or political allies, like tax cuts or military contracts. It's using the language of fear and security to obscure or legitimize actions.
Okay, let's go back inside Oceania for a moment. How did the party maintain internal control day to day? Beyond the telescreens, there was the thought police.
The think pole. They were the boots on the ground, the internal security force. But their real power wasn't just arrests. It was creating that pervasive atmosphere of fear and suspicion. They relied heavily on informants, on turning people against each other.
Even children spying on their parents.
Especially children. The party youth leagues actively encouraged kids to report any unorthodox comments or behaviors by their parents. It atomized society, destroyed trust even within families, making organized resistance virtually impossible. You couldn't trust anyone.
One source compared this to the Mukhabarat systems in some Middle Eastern states.
Yes. Those authoritarian intelligence agencies that rely on networks of informants, coercion, threats, and sometimes brutal torture. Not always for specific intelligence, but often just to maintain a climate of fear and ensure compliance. The goal is social control through paranoia.
And if the thought police caught you, what happened then? You could become an unperson.
That's one of the most chilling concepts. Being made an unperson didn't just mean execution. It meant total erasure from history. Your records deleted, mentions of you removed from documents, photographs destroyed. You ceased to have ever existed. Even mentioning your name became CrimethInc. It's the ultimate expression of controlling the past.
While the party members and potential dissidents lived under this constant threat, What about the masses? The 85%, the proles?
The party's attitude towards the proles is deeply cynical. They see them as fundamentally unintelligent, incapable of organized rebellion, almost subhuman, so they mostly leave them alone in terms of direct political control.
But they do control them indirectly.
Oh, absolutely. Through Prolifeed, the Ministry of Truth churns out this constant stream of low-grade entertainment, specifically for the proles' rubbishy novels, sensationalist news, sports, astrology, maybe even pornography.
Keep them distracted.
Keep them distracted, keep their minds occupied with trivia, prevent them from thinking critically about their own lives or the society they live in. It's bread and circuses, essentially. Keep them fed, barely, and entertained mindlessly, and they won't cause trouble.
Which makes Winston's thought, if there is hope, it lies in the proles, quite poignant.
It is. He sees that they have retained some basic human instincts and emotions that party members have lost. They have a kind of freedom, even if it's just the freedom of the ignorant. But he also recognizes they lack the consciousness, the awareness to actually use that potential power. They're controlled by Prolifeed.
Finally, on the structure, just briefly, the global situation. Oceania, Eurasia, Eastasia, constantly shifting wars.
It's a perfect illustration of cynical realist international relations theory. Power is everything. The three superstates are too evenly matched to conquer each other, so they exist in a state of perpetual limited war.
And the alliances change constantly.
Instantly, as we saw with the rally speaker. Yeah. Oceania is at war with Eurasia and allied with Eastasia one week, then the next. It's always been at war with Eastasia and allied with Eurasia. This constant state of war serves multiple purposes. It uses up surplus production, keeping the population poor and dependent. It justifies the state of emergency and high levels of internal surveillance. And critically, it maintains that fever pitch of patriotism, fear, and hatred directed towards the current enemy, reinforcing loyalty to Big Brother. The war is essential for domestic control. #outro. So if we bring all these threads together, what's the big takeaway from 1984? I think the crucial point, echoing Umberto Eco, is that this isn't just some far-fetched fantasy. It's a warning sign, constructed from the real horrors of the 20th century. So much of what Orwell described wasn't prediction. It was history, or a reflection of ongoing realities. It's a blueprint for how total control can be established and maintained.
And the call to action for us, reading it today, seems to be about vigilance.
Right.
Particularly around language, we need to constantly question the big brothers in our own world, look out for newspeak and political discourse, recognize doublethink when policies contradict stated values.
Especially that justification of security or convenience to erode privacy or expand state power. And questioning our own willingness to participate in surveillance systems. The battle Orwell described the fight for objective truth, for personal memory, for the freedom to think your own thoughts. That battle isn't over. It's ongoing. And maybe the most provocative thought to leave listeners with is this. If parts of Oceania feel disturbingly familiar today, the manipulation of truth, the mass surveillance, the culture of fear, then perhaps 1984 isn't just a date in the past or a dystopian novel. Perhaps it represents a potential future, or even elements of our present that we constantly need to push back against. That resemblance, it demands our attention.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of this really intense deep dive into 1984. Thank you for navigating it with us here at Daily Books. Now, we want to hear from you. What book should we tackle next? Which author's world deserves this kind of exploration? Let us know your requests down in the comments section. That's how we choose our next adventure together.
We look forward to reading your suggestions.
See you in new books. Goodbye.